said that she did watch the Drew Peterson movie on Lifetime.
Right.
Even though she knew she had been admonished not to read or watch anything related to the case, news or otherwise. But she said once she learned that Judge White had retired, and he's the one who had admonished them in July 2010, Judge White retired in October 2010, she just kind of assumed that she was clear. And that's basically the only thing she did related to the case was watch that movie. So out of an abundance of caution, the judge excused her, even though she didn't do anything intentionally wrong. Now, there were jurors who, despite the admonishment, still watched the movie. It's aired a couple of times, most recently just last Saturday. Although most people who said they saw it when it initially aired. Now, one of the things they really questioned jurors about was whether or not they were divorced, and a number of them have been divorced, and that's just not the jurors of the 8 so far seated, but many who were excused. But the lawyers wanted to know whether the divorce was contentious and whether or not there was any argument over the division of marital assets. That's an issue in this case. There, are allegations that Drew Peterson and documentation that he had a very contentious relationship with Kathleen Savio during the 2 years they were kind of divorced but hadn't divided the marital assets. And also even before that, there were acts of violence and threats by him that he could kill her and make it look like an accident, according to people who are expected to testify to that. So they really probed contentious, acrimonious divorces. They wanted to know, a lot of people in the pool were actually from Bolingbrook, which is where Drew Peterson was a patrol officer, a sergeant. Mm. No one knew him, although there was a juror who knew his children. Some people knew some witnesses. They're not on the jury. In addition, they want to know the source of the news, whether or not they watch particular radio, TV stations, what newspapers they read, and some jurors just kind of get news through the atmosphere. They're not really paying attention. They are aware of things that are happening, but they don't sit down and read online or subscribe to newspapers or watch television regularly. And there are a lot of the 8, a lot of managers. There's a credit manager, there's a data center technician, there's a quality manager for a telecommunications company, there's a plant manager, there's a man who's worked for the same company for 30 years, but we don't know the name of it. And before that, he worked for Texaco for 8 years. There's a stay-at-home grandmother who cares for her grandchildren. Wow. A lot of them have children. I haven't done gone through the list yet because I have notes for all 31 to see how many have children or don't. I think more have children than not. There's a mail carrier. There's a student who goes back to school.
So these are of the 8 that were chosen?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are the ones who will be on the jury.
Okay. Danny, I wanted to ask you about something that Beth said, which is interesting, that she said they were asking very often whether people had been divorced. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do they want somebody on the jury who's been divorced because they understand on a very real level emotionally what that takes and how that might play out?
Well, the prosecution or the defense might view that differently, depending. This case has all the classic juror questions involved. Have you been divorced? Are you related to somebody who's in law enforcement? Remember, this is another potential double-edged sword. Drew Peterson was a police officer, but then again, the prosecution is going to ask the jury to believe what the police are saying. So which side would it come down? Divorce is the same issue. If you have been divorced, was it an acrimonious one? Do you hate your ex-spouse? Or, on the other hand, might you be inclined to say, well, no divorce is worth killing someone? So I wouldn't say that divorce is per se good or bad. After all, the defense and the prosecution might take a different view. But it's critical that, and whether or not people are involved with law enforcement, it is critical in evaluating the impartiality of a potential juror. Remember, jurors don't have to be ignorant. They don't have to live in a bubble. They just have to, based on all their life experiences, still be able to be impartial.
Interesting. All right. Hey, Danny and Beth, thank you both so much. We want to move on here to the murder trial in Tampa right now. This man, the owner of an impound company, killed a driver after an argument over a towed car. Now, the defense's star witness is wrapping up her testimony, and the prosecution suggests she and the defendant had more than just a working relationship. It's Florida versus Donald Montanez, and it's on In Session.
Tonight, on an all-new hardcore porn. Down low.
It's like, ew, ow, does that hurt?
Up close.
Well, it happens if you did get you 500. You're not going to be